Namaste and welcome to another episode of SAMVAAD. SAMVAAD is a platform where we invite the brilliant minds to discuss and deliberate on topics related to international relations and geopolitics. Today, we are discussing the recent border clash between Armenia and Azerbaijan. To discuss this, we have noted political scientist and research scholar Dr. Narek Sukiasyan. Dr. Narek is associated with the Center for Culture and Civilizational Studies at the Yerevan State University. Dr. Sukiasyan, it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to ISSF SAMVAAD. Thank you so much for your time.
The pleasure is mine to talk to your audience and present the situation from the ground.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, I sincerely wished we could have connected on a more happier time, but it is what it is. So before we move on to our question and answer session, very briefly, could you tell our viewers what is the situation on the ground? Is there calm and tranquility at the border, or is there any kind of aggression from the Azerbaijani side?
Thank you for your question. I think that would be useful also for the audience to get the basics from the situation. So the basics are the following. Since the end of 2020 Karabakh War, which resulted in trilateral ceasefire agreement between the leaders of Armenia, Russia, and Azerbaijan, Armenia gave control of 7 territories surrounding Nagorno Karabakh Autonomous Oblast to Azerbaijan, and more than that, that Azerbaijan could seize through military force. Not to go too deep into the details of the agreement, but Azerbaijan, ever since the war, continued to push militarily for more concessions from the Armenian side. And those concessions touch upon not only issues related directly to Karabakh, to the Armenians living in Karabakh, infrastructure or territories of it, or the status or the lack of the status, but also they had demands from the Republic of Armenia. They, since May 2021, and immediately after the war, seized territories belonging to the Republic of Armenia, to the internationally recognized borders of it. And continued aggressions one at a time, once in few months, towards deeper into the territory, taking new strategic heights, while Armenian army was in the process of reconstruction and recovery. At the backdrop of the silence from the international community, or toothless statements addressing both sides. This recent escalation, even though it's not, I think, neither politically nor academically correct to call it an escalation, because it is an act of large-scale war amounting to a statement or state of war by the Azerbaijani state against eastern borders of Armenia, due to which more than 200 deaths were caused to the Armenian side. Azerbaijan has recognized only about less than 80 deaths amongst its servicemen. Thousands of Armenians have been displaced from their residences because 6 or 7 Armenian cities were targeted directly or indirectly. Civilian infrastructure was heavily damaged. And Azerbaijan seized control of several military positions with high strategic significance that allows them either to take control or have complete oversight over strategic territories and communications which connect Armenia, which connect Yerevan to its southern parts, to Nagorno Karabakh, which is the only lifeline of those 120,000 Armenians still living there, and also Iran. Azerbaijan currently oversees very large chunks of the road that connects Armenia to Iran, and that cannot be that cannot not worry the Armenian side or its neighbors, such as Iran, even Georgia, or others who are interested in regional communications, including India, which considers the road connecting to Iran to Armenia and further a priority for its global ambitions. Currently, there are no military operations actively taking place, even though the situation remains acutely worrying, because Azerbaijan occupies over 60 square kilometers of the land of the territory of the Republic of Armenia. We're not speaking about Karabakh, even though I do not making this differentiation. I do not want to degrade or downgrade the importance of those territories or the land in which local Armenians live in Karabakh, because they strive for self-determination, for the right of living in their land and not being ethnically cleansed. And unfortunately, all those territories that have passed to Azerbaijani control in all circumstances have been completely erased from Armenian population, both population, community heritage, cultural heritage, and basically any other trace. I will not go too deeper into the international political circumstances, hoping that we will dwell on those issues more in detail in your questions.
Right, sir. Rightly so, sir. The situation from what you have said is quite worrying. But sir, before we delve deeper into the Azeri motive of this escalation, sir, most of our viewers, sir, they are from India, so they might not be aware of the historical context of this this disputed area. So can you very briefly tell our viewers the historical context of this particular area of which we call Artsakh or the Karabakh?
Sure, and I will grossly oversimplify things to just set the background, and I can maybe later provide some links or literature for those who are more interested. But basically, not to go into thousands of years of history, which our countries can be proud of, going back to the formation of the Soviet Union, basically, the Soviet authorities in Caucasus, led by then Stalin, cut this territory where Armenians lived in Karabakh, and naming it Nagorno Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. And Oblast is like a district in Russian, right? And they gave control or put it under the jurisdiction of Soviet Azerbaijani Republic, even though the population was predominantly Armenian and connected to Armenia. They did it for so-called economic reasons, but we won't go into detail for that for the moment. Later, when during the entire Soviet era, the Armenians of Karabakh were discriminated against on their ethnic basis by the authorities, Soviet authorities in Baku, economically, linguistically, culturally, etc. And those Armenians raised their demands both in Baku or in Moscow, in Yerevan, to continue to enjoy or regain their cultural or ethnic rights, to no avail. Which, however, in late 80s, with Glasnost, with Perestroika, the reforms of Gorbachev, gave more ground for those demands to be voiced, which resulted in military pressure by the Azerbaijani authorities, resulting in cleansing of Armenians from Northern Karabakh and other regions. In parallel with pogroms or mass terrors and atrocities of Armenians in other major cities of Azerbaijan, including Baku and Sumgait, which in a spiraling effect brought into a war in which local Armenians had to defend themselves and to provide their independence or their sovereignty, is their self-determination, for protection of their rights. So the conflict is often misframed as an ethnic one or even religious one, which is absurd. It is a conflict over the rights of local Armenians to be able to live, to reside in their homeland without being displaced, which is directly connected to the status of the territory on which they are residing. So it's not a religious conflict, it's not a ethnic, in a sense that there are ethnic disagreements. The ethnicities of the two sides differ, but there is no ethnic issue at the core, right? However, during the continuation of this conflict, there have been attempts to frame the conflict in those terms, like Azerbaijan raising the issue on Islamic platforms, trying to frame it in that way for the sake of just attracting allies in that sense. But going back to the context, in 2020, I mean, in the first Karabakh War, Armenians were able to successfully establish a functioning state by and creating institutions, democratic institutions, which were times better in their rankings, even official or non-official rankings by also international institutions who do those rankings, more democratic, more free, more open than Azerbaijan. But in 2020, Azerbaijan initiated a large-scale aggression against Karabakh, which later became known as the Second Karabakh War or the 44-day war, in which it took 1/3 of those territories militarily, as I said, completely erasing the Armenian population living there, committing a number of atrocities and war crimes against the civilian population. There are hundreds of videos circulating on the internet and praised very often by Azerbaijani users, where their soldiers, including not only their soldiers, but also mercenaries and terrorists that have been brought from various countries in Middle East to participate in the war. There are videos circulating where their soldiers cut off throats of civilians, dismember their bodies, and some of those soldiers, it is recorded, it is registered, have been awarded by the president of Azerbaijan. So 1/3 was taken militarily, other 2/3 or even more were taken as a result of the ceasefire agreement reached after 44 days of fighting, or 45. And the continuation is the situation that I described as the answer to your previous question. Azerbaijan has been continuing to use military force to torpedo negotiations that take place by the mediation of either Moscow or Brussels. We can talk about that also in detail. Those are seemingly compensating or complementing, but parallel and often disengaged processes. But torpedoing those negotiations, Azerbaijan feels the weakness of Armenia, that it has not recovered from the losses in Second Karabakh War, feels the disengagement of Russia from the region, which is too busy in Ukraine, to take as much as possible to maximize its gains through military bargaining, basically putting forward on the negotiation table demands that cannot be met, that are illegitimate according to international law or the international system that recognizes Armenia as an independent state, as a part of it, and unable to reach those demands through negotiations, that it intentionally fails, goes to military force and tries to get what they demanded militarily, or even more.
Right, sir. So now, sir, we have got the historical context from your side. Now, I think it is very important that we delve deeper into what is Azerbaijan's end game regarding this whole conflict. If we read into Azerbaijan, so there are multiple reasons why they have escalated this conflict. So one reason must be they want the Nagorno Karabakh area that they believed was forcibly taken from them. Or there is also one demand for a corridor because they also have an exclave of Nakhchivan towards the western side of Armenia. So there are also demands which Armenia is not able to fulfill. That is the presence of a corridor through Armenia, so that Nakhchivan can be connected to mainland Azerbaijan. Now, the third reason, which I find very interesting, involves Turkey, because you see, sir, Armenia is the last remaining frontier which comes in between the greater Turkestan region, right? Because if you remove Armenia, Turkey connects with all the Turkish states, right from Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan. So Armenia is sort of playing a spoilsport in President Erdogan's dream of a greater Turkestan. So according to you, what is Azerbaijan's end game in this conflict?
You touch upon very important points, bringing in Turkey into discussion, because the war in 2020 and the processes after that are caused or have become possible by the entrance of Turkey into South Caucasus. It has been there definitely before, had been there economically, and a huge political influence in Georgia, cooperation with Azerbaijan in all possible spheres, but it directly refrained from getting in there, also due to Russia, which used to hold the monopoly in the region. However, due to that monopoly, was able to control the security dynamics between Armenia and Azerbaijan and avoid this kind of escalation or war. Turkey increased the stakes in 2020, and it's widely reported how it cooperated with military commanders, with F-16 planes, with Bayraktar drones, and military personnel all over the Azerbaijani army. It infiltrated, we can say, into the region. And Pakistan, in this regard, also has been very active. It remains the only state, the only UN member that does not recognize Armenia to this day. Not only takes a radical position or comforting its ally Azerbaijan, which pledged brotherhood and alliance in all possible spheres and to each other's all of each other's causes, but it does something that is unprecedented or completely out of let's say normal politics or international order, to still not recognize a country, the existence of country, the sovereignty of a country that is part of UN for over 30 years. So the corridors that you touched upon are a demand from the Azerbaijani side, which wants to connect mainland Azerbaijan to its exclave Nakhchivan, basically surrounding Armenia from east and west. But the demand is maximalist in a sense that it wants sovereign exterritorial corridors. This means that Azerbaijan wants roads in Armenia, which Armenia will give up sovereignty over and give them to Azerbaijan. And if you look at the map, if you give anything like that to any country, you basically cut the country into two. So it's something. It's a red line for Armenia, which it cannot afford, because it will cut also Armenia from its ally. From its strategic partner Iran. And cut the communications that also we talked about that are planned coming from India all the way through Iran to Armenia and further. And also this, but Armenian side wants to open as a response to those demands, wants to open all regional communications to all actors involved. So basically saying to Azerbaijan, here are 3 checkpoints at our border that we have together. All of your cars can come and pass through them to wherever they want to go. Just like we want to pass through your territory to wherever we want to go, mainly Russia and Iran. And this is an actual issue because during the First Karabakh War, in order to pressure Armenia further, Azerbaijan and its ally Turkey imposed a blockade on Armenia on all sides, which is closing 80% of Armenia's borders, because Armenia shares shortest borders with Georgia and even shorter with Iran, but most of its borders are with Azerbaijan and Turkey. So they imposed a blockade, basically leaving Armenia's communications with the world to tiny bottlenecks. So Armenia, as a response to those demands, also wants to deblock the region, but that also would mean end of that illegal blockade, of that illegal sanction on Armenia, which may in the long term benefit its economy and strengthen the Armenian state. Now, this brings us to your main question, the end game, the end goals of Azerbaijan and Turkey. And I want to stress the togetherness of those political subjects in this issue, because since 2020 war, maybe not before that to that degree, but after that war, we cannot. It's erroneous to leave Turkey out of the security considerations here, because all policies that Baku and Ankara apply, they are in concert, they are coordinated, they are in sync to each other. So the end game or the goals of Baku and Ankara in these security processes is to weaken the Armenian state to the possible minimum. And it's not something that we can deduct from what they do, but it's something that we can explicitly hear from what they say. It's not once that Ankara and Baku on official presidential levels have said that Armenia should rethink its place or its actions, otherwise it will be wiped out, or it will be forced to further concessions, or its neck and head will be broken. And these are not allegories, these are citations from top officials from those two states. Coming to more tangible demands or the tangible goals, Azerbaijan wants a complete withdrawal of demands over Karabakh, so that it could have full jurisdiction over it, because that territory where 120,000 Armenians remain is now under protection of Russian peacekeeper forces, according to the trilateral ceasefire agreement. But they're not happy with it. They're not happy about it. They, at any possible occasion, they stress temporarily dislocated or dispatched Russian peacekeeper forces. So they are looking forward to any opportunity to get rid of them, because it is not in Turkey's regional interests. But we know that as a result of that, the experience shows that all those Armenians will be simply displaced from their homes. That regards to Karabakh. From Armenia, they want the corridors, as said. They also want enclaves, which are artificially created small islands inside Armenia or inside Azerbaijan, that were given to Armenian Soviet Republic or Azerbaijani Soviet Republic in accordance to Russian Soviet administrative decisions, which are, as I said, artificially created. They are not naturally fitting to the geography or the territory or the ethnic composition of those areas, which do not have any political significance. Or practical significance. I mean, practically, their only significance for Azerbaijan is they demand those, because the road that connects Yerevan to Tbilisi, Armenia's capital to Georgia's capital, passes through those territories. But they will not gain anything from that. No Azerbaijani, if not forced, will come to live there. They just want those territories in order to inflict further damage to Armenia. And if that's what was not enough, they also, according to my insights, the Armenian Prime Minister and Azerbaijani President had the last round of negotiations in Brussels 2 or 3 weeks ago, in which, according to my information, the Armenian side agreed to a number of points on the negotiating table. But at the end, Azerbaijan demanded also the return of 3,000 Azerbaijanis who used to live in southern or eastern Armenia. Number exaggerated, of course, but that's the point of this argument, is that Azerbaijan intentionally tries to bring in such talking points in order to fail the negotiations and find red flags, or create red flags, or create info grounds for its military attacks against Armenia, to artificially try to legitimate those.
Right, sir. So now we'll shift towards the politics of Armenia, right? What is happening right now in Yerevan? If you'll see, sir, there are massive protests, as we have seen visuals live from Yerevan, against your Prime Minister, Mr. Pashinyan. So do you think that Mr. Pashinyan is going to survive in the coming few weeks? Because as far as I know, sir, there are also talks of a no confidence motion from a joint opposition group. And forgive me for saying this, sir, but as a third party individual, if as an outsider, if I view the body language of your Prime Minister, so it is not very outward. It is not very bold, because it seems that he is actually I do not know if I should say this, but quite scared now. So do you think Mr. Pashinyan is going to survive in the coming few weeks?
That's a question that is probably impossible to answer, but I will try to present the circumstances around that and the factors that can determine that fate or scenario. After 2018 democratic revolution in Armenia, this Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan came to power on popular wave, and since then Armenia was not able to form a viable or a form of opposition that could in all power resist the government or the governing party. The opposition that was formed is composed of the former politicians, mainly from the second and third presidents of Armenia or forces around them. Those political circles do not enjoy wide popularity. They together were not able to gain political majority in the last parliamentary elections. Furthermore, Pashinyan's party was able to gain constitutional majority, but it is not to say that to some extent, of course, because he also has his genuine supporters. But that constitutional majority was possible because not because people prefer him or his party as the best, but when they compare them to those two previous leaders who are widely unpopular, in comparison, they tend to tolerate Pashinyan, our prime minister, than to accept coming back to power of the second or third presidents. They have been continuously calling for popular action, protests, a few times, large campaigns. However, none of them could gain large momentum that could swept Pashinyan from power. The second day of this recent escalation of Azerbaijani aggression, the opposition called for protests. I think that's the one that you are recalling, which was rather massive, but it waned away the next or the coming days. I know that they are planning some other actions, but it's a gamble to guess whether they will be any successful. However, there's growing mistrust towards Pashinyan because he ultimately, whether it's his fault or the ambitions of the enemy, he is the first responsible. He is the head of the state, and no matter how much directly it is his fault, the current situation, ultimately he is the final responsible. and of course all the discontent is directed against him. So the discontent is growing. The opposition has probably reached its limits of attracting more and more people. However, the security is, it's out of normal politics, and it may it may shift preferences radically if the situation is radical or even existential. So in normal politics, aside from security situation, the opposition is unable to replace Pashinyan, but the security might bring surprises that we cannot oversee.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the political analysis. Now, sir, we shall move on to the analysis of the Armenian military. Sir, when we were discussing the historical context, you mentioned that in the 1990s, during the first Nagorno Karabakh war, the Armenian military was able to fend off Azerbaijani aggression, and it was able to make a functional state, establish a functional state. So 25 years later, 26 years later, sir, the Armenian military, sir, it receives one of its most thumping defeat in the second Nagorno Karabakh war. So what happened between those 25 years? What was the reason for the decline of the Armenian military to this point?
I'm not a military expert myself, but I can make, I think, some observations that are not contested among the military experts. We should keep in mind that the first war in the 90s was not between two professional armies. Both states have been constructing their militaries during the war. And Armenia was more successful in doing that, also because of the political situation in Armenia, because it was more or less stable and democratic, while in Azerbaijan there were a number of turmoils, also because of the losses in the front, and it had to reconstruct itself, which it ultimately wasn't able to do. In the last 30 years, if you ask what happened, the most important what happened is the shift of the military balance, not only between the two countries, but also regionally. And in this regard, to go into detail, we should security, the main security, more than 90% of arms supplies to Armenian military come from Russia. Russia is also a big supplier for Azerbaijan, especially beginning with 2010s. But it also is heavily armed, especially from the technological standpoint, by Israel, Turkey, and other countries. So, which give it an upper hand in terms of technologies. Military technologies, it has been reformed or is being reformed by NATO standards. Its structure, its units, its command control systems, etc. And the military balance between, or let's say the military spending between Armenia and Azerbaijan has been, the disparity has been widening over the years, because Azerbaijan can afford as much spending only on its military as much as Armenia's state budget, because of the oil and gas revenues that it's been receiving over the years. While Armenia is not natural resource rich country, and it has struggled to update its arsenal. So in this regard, the answer to your question is rather mathematical at its core, but also it is about the organization of the army, the training of the personnel, which we could say that have not been done to the best standards, or have crumbled during the war.
Right, sir. Sir, before we move on to analyze Russia's role in this region, I think, sir, it is very important that we analyze Iran's role in this region. Because, sir, what we have in this whole Caucasus region is the most crazy geopolitical equation. Because Armenia, sir, it is a Christian Orthodox country, and sir, which is friends with a openly Islamic country, that is Iran. And on the other side, you have Azerbaijan, which is a Shiite Muslim country, which is friends with a Jewish country, Israel. So how come this equation works? How Iran is friends with Armenia, how Israel is friend with Azerbaijan? If you could briefly explain to our viewers.
As I said, we shouldn't go into religious component of this conflict because it's not there and we shouldn't artificially create it. But on top of what you mentioned in these connections, also the closest allies, Azerbaijan and Turkey, are Shia and Sunni in their turn. So just to complicate things further, but that kind of, of course, like not on a serious note. But we should to understand the priorities of the states and their motivations. They are not culturally or ethnically or religiously driven. It's let's say geopolitics. It's in its purest form, in a sense that coming to Iran, as it states, is not interested, or moreover, it is a red line for Iran to change the borders of the region. So Iran welcomed the regaining of Azerbaijan by Azerbaijan the territories of Karabakh, because it has stated that it supports Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, it supports Azerbaijan's borders. But now, when we're speaking about Azerbaijan taking chunks of Armenian sovereign territory, Azerbaijan reiterates its position of the borders of the region being its red lines. So we're not speaking about religious affiliations, but geopolitics and priorities as main driving forces of policies. Armenia, as I said, and you also stated, is Russia's ally in the region, and it has a military base in the region. The point of that presence in Armenia is and has been to balance against Turkey after the fall of the Soviet Union. During the first Karabakh War, Turkey explicitly threatened invasion of Armenia in order to support Azerbaijan's efforts in Karabakh. That demand or that threat was met by top Russian generals or officials. Number of them, we can go to the archives to bring them up, have been met by their statements that if in case of Turkish invasion, the world should fear World War III. So this is the constellation. However, in last 30 years, we have seen the rise of Turkey. We've seen a matching of Turkish ambitions with its military capabilities, which have been growing technologically. Also, thanks to or due to the drone technologies that it had developed, which played a decisive role in Karabakh and are playing a decisive role in Russia. In Ukraine, but ultimately against Russian interests, against the Russian balance in the wider region. Also, we can extend it to Syria, where the two also go head to head. And Russia's current role is, of course, conditioned by its busyness or the overstretch of its capabilities from Ukraine to Syria to Armenia and elsewhere. And that overstretch is definitely felt in Ankara and in Baku, and they try to seize the opportunity currently. Coming to Israel, Israeli-Azerbaijani ties. Azerbaijan has been a very, very profitable client, military client or military technological client for Israel. It has updated its military. It has given it the upper hand in the air thanks to Israeli drones, but that has come with a price. The price tag on that is that Azerbaijan obviously gives some kind of access or intelligence to Iran, which shares a very wide northern border with Azerbaijan, while Armenia's border with Iran is, as I said, is a bottleneck. That's I mean, even though Azerbaijan, of course, tries to hide that Israeli hand in Azerbaijan, which tries to take advantage of this lucrative bargain trade between the two and have access satellite or other presence in the northern borders of Iran. And Azerbaijan tries to, of course, hide this because it also has an issue with Iran regarding as they claim, the ethnic Azerbaijanis living in northern Iran. According to sources with various biases, from 5 to 10 to even 20 million Azerbaijanis living there, who once in a while raise irredentist claims against Tehran, claiming, demanding reunification with Azerbaijan, or claiming other rights or preferences or preferential policies for them. So these are the interests of Iran in this constellation. So no change of borders, a red line. This also is about the corridors that Azerbaijan demands. Second one, the Israeli-Azerbaijani ties, which we detailed about what intelligence or access it may provide. And the third one, the issue of Azerbaijani demands, ethnic Azerbaijani demands, territorial demands from northern Iran.
Right, sir. So thank you so much for that insightful discussion, sir. Now, sir, we'll move on to I think the most important part of this discussion, that is the Russia's role in this whole conflict. Sir, if you look at CSTO, the Article 4 of the CSTO, which in simple English, if I may interpret, is that your enemy is my enemy. So a top Armenian politician, he said that we appeal to activate this clause, but we know that nothing is going to happen. So do you think that Russia's role, Russia's influence in the Caucasus region is effectively over? Because if you'll see in 2020 also, in the second Karabakh war, where Azerbaijan was able to gain those 12, 13 points you were talking about. Right, sir. So
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right, sir. So there was a small technical glitch. So do you think Russia's role in this region is over, or do you think Russia still has a lot to offer when it comes to the politics of the Caucasus?
The Russia's role or Russia's presence in the region is far beyond being over. It's not over, but it has inflicted a serious damage. As I said, Azerbaijan opened the security doors into the region in 2020 war in Karabakh by bringing in Turkish presence in a region where Russia considered that it has security monopoly. Later on, Russia tolerated further that presence, or even appeased to Baku and Ankara in the hope to gain allies for its regional or regional, meaning South Caucasus, again regional, but in a wider sense, Eurasian sense, or global sense. In global sense, gaining allies on those platforms. So by appeasing or by comforting Baku and Ankara, it hoped to gain allies. What it did not foresee is that by tolerating or closing an eye on the demands or the aspirations of these two, it committed a huge strategic blunder and gave leverages to those leaders, to Aliyev and Erdogan, over Moscow's interests. So it tolerated or so much their demands that now the wheel has started to roll, and it's increasingly harder to stop it. And we've seen that also lately in Samarkand at CSO summit, where the leaders of those countries were not even on diplomatic level or in the context of their or the symbolism or the context of their negotiations, were not talking to the Russia that we used to know a few years before. So Russia hoped that it could attract Azerbaijan into Eurasian Economic Union or even CSTO. Russia needed and needs Turkey for managing or co-managing the regional conflicts in Syria, in Caucasus, or even in Ukraine. We see Turkey's role in there. So those are the motivations to tolerate Turkey, which also matches also in military capabilities with Russia. So there's also the hard power component or dimension in the discussion of these two. But also there is a common understanding, or they think in Kremlin that there is a common position of Moscow and Ankara towards the West. So in their understanding, that's also something that brings the two into a position where they need to cooperate or tolerate Ankara's misbehavior along with Baku in Caucasus. CSTO has been a project or a Russia's project in its core. No one have thought that Belarusians will fight in Tajikistan, or Tajikistan or the armed forces of Tajikistan will fight in Armenia. That has not been the idea, neither in the capitals of those countries, but nor in Kremlin. It has been a project, it has been a regional or regionalizing institution that primarily connects those post-Soviet countries directly to Moscow rather than them among themselves, their participants. Azerbaijan as well used to be a member of that organization until late 90s. Which tells that when the institution was formed, it wasn't meant to be a deterrence against Azerbaijan. Coming back to my previous answer, Russian presence in Armenia used to be, or was in essence, primarily thought to balance Turkey. So Russia finds itself now in forms, in institutions that have outgrown or are outdated to the security, the actual security environment on the ground. But still, the Russian-Armenian bilateral common defense, mutual defense agreement holds. So that's also another layer of cooperation where the countries can address each other's, or in the case of asymmetry that we have, Russia can support Armenia's security concerns, which have been damaged. The capacity or capabilities have been damaged by Russia's overstretch and over concentration in Ukraine and in other places, but also due to the importance that Russia gave to the South Caucasus, or the low importance that it gave, because on the foreign policy agendas, priorities, South Caucasus or Armenia are not definitely on the very top of them, and that also can be easily deduced from the news headlines about Russia that we can come across to on billboards. It's not we rarely hear about this dimension of Russia's foreign policy priorities.
Right, sir. Sir, I think we have touched upon all the important aspects of this particular conflict. So, sir, my final question to you is a bit philosophical. If you'll see, sir, Armenia's case is a unique case because there are more Armenians living outside Armenia than there are in Armenia. So, I wish to get your views, not as a political scientist, but as a citizen of Armenia. Do you think, among the onslaught that Armenia is right now, from all sides, Armenia is under pressure, do you think Armenia has a bright future? Do you think Armenia will survive this conflict? And do you think that Armenia can revive itself?
I'm sure, and I'm more than confident that Armenia has a bright future. Armenia is living one of the biggest challenges and worst days of its modern history currently. As we are recording it, this interview on the day of Armenia's independence, I have no right to be pessimistic in my answer to you. I understand that there are huge challenges that threaten the sovereignty of Armenia. There aren't few people in the proximity in the region that would like to see the end of Armenian sovereignty. But now is the situation, and as the question is philosophical, I'm not going to answer as a political scientist, but let's say as a something that what politician or someone genuinely concerned with the fate of their country would say that I am hopeful that our diplomatic efforts would be enough or would mobilize to a degree that could deter another offensive by Azerbaijan sponsored by Turkey, which we see boiling. We see a huge movements along the Armenian-Azerbaijani border, both in Nakhichevan and on the east. There are reports coming from all sources or from intelligence, open and closed sources, that another attack is boiling in coming days. So that is not something that should be excluded. But as the UN General Assembly, the important sessions are taking place as we record, it's a platform where Armenia can talk to its partners to deter Azerbaijan's demands, and hopefully that would be possible. And Armenia is also very much relying on India in these hard times. Huge Armenian delegation, top-level delegation, visited India very recently in last month, and strong ties have been established. And there are a number of interests that Armenia and India share, be it from security, military cooperation, regional security situation concerning Turkish interests, wider ambitions, coupled with Pakistani demands and regional or even global ambitions that they try to impose along with their Turkish allies. So there are a number of natural, I would even say, ties that connect India and Armenia, and India's strong position during last attack by Azerbaijan was very welcomed by not only by the Armenian state, but also, and speaking as another Armenian citizen, by the wider Armenian public. You can hear voices of gratitude towards India that named and pinpointed the aggressor. Not only doing this, not only putting another level of deterrence on the aggressor, but also contributing to the international order based on international law. And hopefully Armenia will be able to, with its international partners, and India is on top of them, be able to overcome these very, very hard days of our very short-lived, very short independence in Indian or terms of thousands of years of history. And we hope that together we can create more decades and centuries of peaceful existence in this part of the world. And to engage the Armenian diaspora back to our state, which used to be also very, very well presented in India and culturally very significant.
Right, sir. So I think I speak for all my compatriots when I say that our best wishes, our hopes, and it is with the people of Armenia, and we are 100% sure that you all will come roaring out of this mess that was created by by the countries in your vicinity. And what I can say now is that a very happy Independence Day to you and all the Armenians. And we wish that this conflict dies down and peace returns to the Caucasus. And maybe in the future, sir, you can visit us in New Delhi. And
it will be a pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Right, sir. And I think, sir, we have touched upon all the important points related to this particular conflict. And thank you so much to you for your time. And I think you say Snora Galatsu in Armenian.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the platform, your very insightful questions. Looking forward to talking to you in the future again. And all the best to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And sir, wish you all the best.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.